Wendigo. The Wendigo comes from Algonquian tradition, and it is one of the few mythological creatures that begins as a human being. According to the beliefs of the Cree, Ojibwe, and neighboring peoples, a person who resorts to cannibalism during the brutal northern winter, whether out of desperation or a darker impulse, risks transforming into a Wendigo, a towering skeletal giant consumed by a hunger that can never, under any circumstances, be satisfied. Despite eating constantly, the creature remains emaciated, its skin stretched tight over protruding bones, its body reeking of decay, frost permanently coating its gray flesh. It is said to tower over the tree line, hunting through blizzards, and mimicking human voices to lure victims away from their camps. What makes it genuinely unsettling beyond the monster itself is Wendigo psychosis, a documented cultural phenomenon in which real people, primarily from Algonquian communities, became convinced they were transforming into one, sometimes begging to be restrained or killed before they harmed others. Authorities and missionaries recorded these cases throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, and community leaders sometimes carried out executions to stop the transformation. The hunger never ends. That is the point. Skinwalker. The skinwalker, known in Navajo as Yi Neld Lushi, meaning roughly with it, he goes on all fours, is treated with extreme seriousness in Navajo tradition, and many Navajo people consider even discussing it openly to be dangerous. So this will be handled with the respect it deserves. A skinwalker is a witch who has committed a profound taboo, including the killing of a close family member, in order to gain the power to transform into any animal at will. It wears the skins of its chosen form, moves on all fours at speeds reportedly faster than any vehicle, and can read minds and replicate any human voice with perfect accuracy. It targets isolated individuals, particularly at night, and unlike most folkloric creatures, the skinwalker is not some ancient spirit. It is a corrupted human, someone who chose this. According to tradition, making eye contact allows it to absorb your thoughts. And being scratched or struck by one can begin a transformation in the victim. This is a living belief, not a historical curiosity, and the fear surrounding it in Navajo communities remains real. Rugaroo. The rugaroo is Louisiana's answer to the werewolf, born from French Cajun culture and carrying a detail that sets it apart from its European cousins. It specifically hunts Catholics who have broken Lent. According to tradition, if you fail to observe the 40 days of Lent for 7 consecutive years, the rugaroo will find you somewhere in the swamps and cane fields of southern Louisiana. It takes the shape of a human body topped with a wolf or dog's head, and an encounter with it is not immediately fatal, but it is a curse. If the creature draws your blood, the affliction transfers to you, and you will spend exactly 101 days as the rugaroo before passing it to the next victim. The creature stalks Bayou country, waist deep in dark water beneath Spanish moss, its yellow eyes catching light between the cypress trees. It is taken seriously enough that Houma, Louisiana, holds an annual rugaroo festival, and the legend has functioned for generations as genuine moral enforcement, a monster that arrives specifically when you have made a choice. Werewolf. The werewolf is the most globally recognized shapeshifter on this list, but the historical reality behind it is more disturbing than most people realize. Medieval and early modern Europe conducted actual werewolf trials, formal legal proceedings in which people were accused, tortured into confession, and executed for the crime of lycanthropy. Peter Stump was executed in Cologne in 1589 after confessing, under torture, to transforming into a wolf and killing 16 people, including children. Separate from the folklore entirely, the Beast of Gévaudan was a real creature that killed approximately 100 people in the Auvergne region of France between 1764 and 1767. Attacks so systematic and so focused on humans that they generated genuine werewolf panic across the country. The transformation in older traditions is agonizing. Bones fracturing and reshaping, body temperature surging violently, the person's consciousness either submerging or watching helplessly. The silver weakness is largely a modern addition. Older folklore relied on wolfsbane, ryegrain, and the exhaustion of the wolf form at dawn. The monster and the mass hysteria it produced were equally dangerous. Strigoi. The strigoi is the original vampire, the creature Bram Stoker was drawing from when he wrote Dracula, and the Romanian tradition is considerably more visceral than what ended up on the page. There are two kinds, the moroi, a living strigoi born with a caul or a tail, and the strigoi mort, the undead kind that rises approximately 40 days after burial, according to tradition. The strigoi mort does not merely drink blood. Older accounts describe it consuming organs and flesh, and it begins with family members before moving outward to strangers, spreading illness and death through an entire household over weeks. It can control animals, turn invisible, and in some accounts, leave its grave to visit its spouse before anyone else notices it is gone. In 2004, in the Romanian village of Marotinu de Sus, a family exhumed a relative's corpse, removed and burned the heart, and drank the ashes mixed with water, a traditional protective ritual. Police investigated. The family was unapologetic. The belief is not ancient history. Nuckelavee. The nuckelavee comes from the Orkney Islands off the northern coast of Scotland, and it is, by most accounts, the single most physically repulsive creature in British Isles mythology. It is skinless, entirely, deliberately, disturbingly skinless. A horse and rider fused into one being, with every vein visible beneath, pulsing with black blood, every muscle exposed and glistening. A single enormous eye sits in the center of its face. The human torso growing from the horse's back has arms long enough to drag along the ground. Its breath alone causes crops to wilt, livestock to collapse, and plagues to spread across the land. It emerges from the sea and ranges inland, and the only way to escape it is to cross a river or stream of fresh running water, which it cannot cross. The folklorist Walter Trail Dennison recorded the most detailed description in 1891 and even committed to paper. The nuckelavee reads like something designed specifically to be impossible to look at directly. Everything about it is wrong. Kelpie. The kelpie is a shape-shifting water horse from Scottish folklore, and its method of killing is built around a trap so elegant it is almost admirable. It appears at the edge of a loch or river as a stunning gray or black horse, perfectly calm, seemingly ownerless. Children, and sometimes adults, climb onto its back. The moment they touch it, their hands bond to its hide and cannot be removed no matter how hard they pull. The kelpie then drags them into the water and devours everything except the liver, which floats to the surface and washes ashore, the only evidence that anyone was ever there at all. It can also appear as a beautiful man or woman to lure adult victims who are less interested in an unattended horse. Its power resides in its bridle. Capturing the bridle gives a person complete control over it, turning one of Scotland's most dangerous creatures into an obedient and extraordinarily powerful working animal. The liver always floats up. That detail appears independently across too many sources to be a coincidence. Redcap. The redcap haunts ruined castles along the Anglo-Scottish border, and its logic is grimly simple. It must keep killing or it dies. The red cap it wears, soaked and heavy with the blood of everyone it has murdered, must stay wet. If the blood dries, the red cap dies with it. So it waits in abandoned fortresses for travelers foolish enough to seek shelter, kills them with an iron pike, and dyes its cap fresh. It is described as a small, wiry old man with iron boots and eagle talons for feet, deceptively easy to dismiss until you realize it is faster than any human alive despite the boots. Outrunning it is not an option. Lord Solis of Hermitage Castle in the Scottish borders was said to be served by a redcap named Robin Redcap, according to regional accounts, which is either a remarkable detail or a warning about the kind of man Lord Solis apparently was. The only things that stop it are scripture and the sign of the cross, at which it vanishes with a scream, leaving only a single long tooth behind. Manticore. The manticore has the body of a lion, the face of a man, and 3 complete rows of teeth, interlocking like a shark's, all of it topped with a scorpion tail capable of launching venomous spines. It comes from Persian mythology, and its name derives from the Persian word mardkora, meaning man-eater, which is one of the more literal creature names in world folklore. The Greek physician Ctesias of Cnidus recorded the earliest known written description around 400 BCE while serving at the Persian court, and his account spread westward with enough authority that medieval European scholars included the manticore in their bestiaries alongside real animals, treating it as a confirmed natural species. Its voice was described as a piping trumpet sound used to lure prey before the 3 rows of teeth closed around them entirely, bones and all, nothing left behind. It was adopted into heraldry as a symbol of tyranny. The image of something wearing a human face and eating humans whole apparently struck medieval Europeans as an accurate metaphor for bad governance. Lamia. Lamia begins as a tragedy. According to ancient Greek myth, she was a queen of Libya, beautiful and beloved by Zeus, which meant that Hera destroyed her children out of jealousy. Driven out of her mind by grief, Lamia transformed into a monster that devoured other people's children, specifically because her own had been taken from her. Later tradition gave her a serpent's body below the waist and the additional disturbing ability to remove her own eyes and replace them at will, which she reportedly used to sleep while technically still watching. She was eventually merged with the empusa in some accounts, gaining shape-shifting abilities she used to seduce men before eating them. The word lamia became a general Greek term for any child-eating bogey woman, which tells you how thoroughly the original mythological figure colonized the cultural imagination. John Keats wrote a poem called Lamia in 1819 drawing on the classical tradition, but the ancient version is considerably less romantic. It is a grieving mother who became something that hunts in the dark, and that origin makes it linger. Empusa. The empusa is a shape-shifting demon in ancient Greek mythology, one of the servants of Hecate, and it is specifically assigned to crossroads and night roads, the places travelers are most vulnerable and most alone. It can take the form of a beautiful woman, a dog, a cow, or a ghost, and it is particularly known for seducing sleeping men before draining their blood and consuming their flesh. What makes the empusa memorable among its category is its physical tell. One leg made of brass, the other described variously as that of a donkey, or made entirely of donkey. Disguise has its limits. It appears in Aristophanes' comic play The Frogs from 405 BCE in a moment of dark humor, which suggests the Athenian audience knew the creature well enough to laugh at a reference, and it is described in considerably less comedic terms by Philostratus. The other detail worth noting, you can repel an empusa by shouting insults at it, at which point it shrieks and flees. Whether that works with other creatures on this list has not been tested. Aswang. The aswang is the most feared creature in Filipino mythology, and the word itself covers a whole family of monsters rather than a single being, all of them sharing one trait. They look exactly like your neighbors. By day, the aswang is a normal, often attractive townsperson. By night, it transforms to feed, with different regional variants doing so in different ways. But the most documented version, found across the Visayas region, specifically targets pregnant women, extending a long hollow tongue through the walls or roof of a house to drain the blood and life force of an unborn child. The tik-tik variant is accompanied by a small bird whose call gets quieter as the aswang gets closer, which is the opposite of what your instincts tell you to expect. Perhaps most remarkably, the aswang was weaponized as psychological warfare. Edward Lansdale, a U.S. military officer, documented in his own memoirs that during the Huk Rebellion in the Philippines in the 1950s, operatives spread aswang rumors and staged evidence of aswang attacks to terrorize insurgents. A creature from folklore, deployed as a military asset, manananggal. The manananggal is technically a type of aswang, but operates on a mechanic so specific it demands its own explanation. Its name roughly translates to one who separates, and that is precisely what it does. At night, the manananggal intentionally tears its upper body away from its legs, which remain standing wherever they were left, while the torso flies on enormous bat wings in search of prey, trailing organs beneath it. It targets pregnant women, hovering above a roof, and lowering its long tongue through a gap to reach a sleeping victim. Here's the critical detail. If you find the lower half while the torso is out hunting and coat it with salt, garlic, or ash before sunrise, the creature cannot reattach when it returns. It dies, unable to rejoin itself. The monster has to make it back before dawn, salt the legs, and it never does. This is one of very few creatures in world mythology whose specific killing method involves preventing its own body from completing a reunion, which is either poetic or simply practical, depending on whether you are the one waiting with the salt. Penanggalan. The penanggalan is Malay folklore's contribution to the detached head genre, and it adds a detail that elevates it from merely horrifying to genuinely unforgettable. When it returns home before dawn, it must soak its dangling stomach and intestines in vinegar to shrink them back down enough to fit inside the body. So somewhere, according to tradition, there is a large vat of vinegar that a penanggalan comes home to every morning. By night, it flies as a grinning, glowing severed head trailing its own digestive system beneath it, drawn specifically to the smell of blood from childbirth. It targets women in labor, and newborns with particular focus. Villagers would hang thorny branches of the rugaroo plant above doorways and windows because the penanggalan's hanging intestines catch on the thorns, stopping its entry. The image is the thing. A human head, faintly luminescent, hovering outside a lamplit window at 3 a.m., its entrails pressed against the glass, looking for a way in through the thorns. Toyol. The toyol is a demon made from a dead infant spirit, bound into service by a witch or bomo, a traditional Malay practitioner, and used as a tool rather than as a free predator. It is small, greenish, with large eyes and the body of a child, and it is sent to steal food, money, and valuables from neighbors on its keeper's behalf. The price is blood, fed directly from the keeper's own finger or toe. This is where it turns. If the bomo dies without successfully passing the toyol on to someone else, the creature turns on its master and devours them. You can also steal a toyol from its original keeper and redirect it against them, which suggests an entire shadow economy of demon trafficking that traditional Malay and Singaporean folklore takes seriously. The related Thai tradition of the Kumanthong is similar but distinct, a preserved fetal spirit used for protection and luck. And the overlap between these traditions across Southeast Asia reflects both shared belief systems and a consistent cross-cultural instinct that the spirits of the very young are extraordinarily dangerous if not handled correctly. Kuchisake-onna. Kuchisake-onna, the slit-mouthed woman, is one of the most structurally elegant horror concepts in world folklore, because she kills you no matter what you say. She approaches wearing a surgical mask, which in Japan is a completely normal thing to wear in public, and she asks, "Am I beautiful?" If you say no, she kills you with her scissors. If you say yes, she removes the mask, revealing a mouth cut from ear to ear, and asks again. Say no this time and she kills you. Say yes and she slits your mouth to match hers. Reports of people encountering her swept across Japan in 1979 with enough intensity that schools in Gifu Prefecture dismissed early, police departments deployed additional officers, and children refused to walk home alone. A genuine mass panic over an urban legend documented in contemporary Japanese newspapers. Some accounts suggest that giving an ambiguous answer, so-so, or saying you have an urgent appointment, allows escape, but the sources do not entirely agree. The 1979 panic is real. The rest is between you and the scissors. Oni. Oni are enormous demons from Japanese mythology standing taller than any human, typically red or blue-skinned, with one or more horns and iron-spiked clubs called kanabo that they use with enthusiasm in their role as enforcers in the realm of Mo, the Japanese ruler of hell. They are not freelance predators, they serve a function in the cosmic order, torturing and processing the dead according to their sins. But they do appear in the human world, specifically during the period around Setsubun on February 3rd, when Japanese families throw roasted soybeans to drive them out while shouting, "Oni wa soto, fuku wa uchi," demons out, luck in. The detail that makes them genuinely interesting rather than simply large and violent is their origin. Some Oni were once human beings, transformed by dying in a state of extreme hatred, jealousy, or grief. The emotion calcified into something physical. Unlike Western demons, individual Oni have distinct personalities. Some are tragic, some are almost comedic. And the tradition does not treat them as purely evil, which makes the ones that are purely evil considerably more unnerving by contrast. Yamamba. The yamamba, sometimes written yamamba, lives in the mountain passes of Japan where she runs an extraordinarily dangerous bed and breakfast. She appears as an old woman, offers travelers caught in the mountains shelter and a warm meal, and then eats them while they sleep. The detail that elevates her past a standard cannibal witch is the second mouth. Some traditions describe her as having an additional mouth hidden in her hair on top of her head, grinning independently while her face presents something grandmotherly and safe. She is immensely powerful, capable of controlling the weather and the animals of the mountains, and she has an almost territorial relationship with the peaks she inhabits. What complicates her is that she is not always a villain. In some tales, she is a protective spirit of the mountains, helping those who treat her with respect and destroying those who don't, which means the real danger is not knowing which version you found until it's the middle of the night and you've already eaten her food and thanked her and closed your eyes. Rakshasa. Rakshasas are powerful demon beings from Hindu and Buddhist mythology, and their defining ability, perfect shapeshifting, capable of assuming any human or animal form, makes them uniquely dangerous because you genuinely cannot tell one from a person. They haunt cremation grounds, disrupt sacred rituals, and in their man-eating capacity, seduce and consume humans with considerable sophistication. The giveaway, according to tradition, is their feet, which point backward, a detail consistent enough across South and Southeast Asian regional traditions that it suggests a shared diagnostic instinct about how to spot something wearing the wrong body. The most famous Rakshasa is Ravana, the 10-headed demon king of Lanka, who abducts Sita and triggers the entire Ramayana, a being of enormous intelligence, power, and in some readings, genuine complexity. Not all Rakshasas are evil. Some serve as guardians and protectors across Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain traditions. The ones that eat people are specifically the ones you encounter at crossroads after dark, wearing a face you recognize. Ammit. Ammit does not hunt. Ammit waits, and that is worse. She sits beside the scales in the Egyptian Hall of Two Truths, her body an assemblage of the three most dangerous animals in the ancient Nile Valley: the head of a crocodile, the front legs and torso of a lion, and the back legs of a hippopotamus. When a soul arrives in the afterlife, its heart is removed and placed on a scale against the feather of Ma'at, the feather of cosmic truth, in a ceremony called the Weighing of the Heart, depicted in detail in chapter 125 of the Book of the Dead. If the heart is heavier than the feather, weighted down by sin and dishonesty, Ammit eats it. The soul then ceases to exist entirely. No punishment, no suffering, no continued torment, simply nothing. Permanent erasure from existence. Ammit is not evil and was not worshipped. She has no temple or cult. She performs a necessary function. She is the consequence of how you chose to live, sitting patiently at the end of every life, waiting to see how heavy your heart actually is. Popobawa. The popobawa is a shape-shifting evil spirit from Swahili folklore on the island of Zanzibar, and its name means bat wing in Swahili. What makes it notable beyond its mythology is what it has actually caused in the documented recent past. In 1995, a wave of popobawa panic swept across Zanzibar with enough intensity that large numbers of people abandoned sleeping indoors, gathering instead in communal groups outside their homes through the night, because the popobawa, according to tradition, prefers to attack people alone. The panic was documented by journalists and anthropologists at the time and represented a genuine widespread social phenomenon driven by a shared belief. The creature has a self-replicating mechanic built into its folklore. Victims are required to tell others about the attack, or the popobawa returns, spreading the fear as part of the creature's operation. It also reportedly targets skeptics specifically. Those who do not believe in it are its preferred victims, which creates an efficient deterrent against public doubt and ensures the belief maintains itself. Impundulu. The impundulu, or lightning bird, comes from Zulu and Xhosa tradition in southern Africa, and it operates as a weapon as much as a creature. A witch, or sometimes a lineage of witches across generations, controls an impundulu, sending it to strike enemies, cause illness, and drain the blood of targeted victims. In its predatory form, it is enormous, summoning lightning and thunder with its wings, and the name reflects the traditional understanding that lightning strikes were not meteorological events, but attacks. What complicates the simple monster framework is its other form. The impundulu can appear as a beautiful young man who seduces women and then drains their life force gradually over time. So slowly the victim may not understand what is happening. The familiar is passed down through generations within a witch's family. It is inherited, binding each new keeper whether they want it or not. Its egg, if found, grants the finder immense power, but also binds them to the creature permanently. In Zulu and Xhosa tradition, unexplained illness in a household has historically been understood, in part, as evidence that someone nearby owns one. Adze. The adze comes from the Yu people of Ghana and Togo, and in its natural state, it looks like a firefly. Small, glowing, completely harmless. This is the trap. A firefly is something you watch drift past a window at night and do not worry about. The adze uses this, entering homes as a tiny light, and then possessing sleeping humans, turning them into witches who feed on the blood, organs, and life force of their own family members, prioritizing children. The possession works slowly. The victim wastes away over weeks while the adze feeds internally. If you catch a firefly that is actually an adze, it transforms immediately into something monstrous, a large, hideous creature far beyond what the tiny light suggested. But catching it is the problem, because fireflies are not easy to catch and you have no way of knowing which ones to chase. The adze explains, within Yu cosmological tradition, why illness and misfortune tend to cluster within families. It is not coincidence. Something inside the house is eating you, and it came in through an open window looking like something beautiful. Strix. The strix, plural striges, is an owl-like creature from ancient Roman mythology that specifically targets infants and nursing mothers. Entering homes at night to either feed poisonous milk to children in place of their mothers, or simply remove and consume the infant's organs directly. It is sometimes a transformed witch and sometimes a natural monster depending on the source, but its focus is consistent across accounts. Ovid addresses the striges in his poem Fasti, treating them seriously enough to describe ritual protective measures, and Roman law at certain points reference the creatures as a genuine threat to children that required practical countermeasures. The strix's name became the scientific genus name for owls in modern taxonomy, strix, which means that every time a biologist writes the species designation for a barred owl or a tawny owl, they are using a word that ancient Romans associated with a child-eating demon. That continuity between classical monster and modern scientific nomenclature is either a historical accident or evidence that the owl's nighttime behavior left a sufficiently deep impression on enough people for long enough that the name stuck permanently. Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga is the most complicated creature on this list, and the complication is the point. She lives deep in the forest at the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead, in a hut that spins continuously on chicken legs, surrounded by a fence made of human bones, topped with glowing skulls. She flies in a mortar, steering with a pestle, sweeping her tracks from the air with a birch broom, and she has iron teeth, a nose that scrapes her ceiling, and the ability to smell a living human approaching from significant distance. The classic phrase across dozens of recorded tales is some variation of, "There is a Russian smell here." She eats those who fail her tests. But she also helps those who are courageous enough, polite enough, or clever enough to meet her standards, giving them magical objects, information, and safe passage. She cannot be predicted. She decides in the moment which way this goes. The ambiguity is not a mistake in the folklore, it is the folklore. Baba Yaga represents the forest itself, indifferent, ancient, and entirely willing to devour you, but occasionally impressed enough to let you pass. Stickini. The stickini comes from Seminole tradition, and its process is specific enough to be worth following step by step. At night, a stickini, which has spent the day appearing entirely human, possibly someone you know, finds a private place and vomits out all of its internal organs, leaving them cached somewhere hidden. Free of its organs, it transforms into a great horned owl and flies through the night, entering homes silently and extracting the hearts of sleeping victims to eat. Before dawn, it returns to its organs, reabsorbs them, and resumes human form by morning. The vulnerability is those cached organs. If you find them and destroy them before the stickini returns, it cannot survive the reunion and dies. The practical problem is that you have to find a pile of organs hidden somewhere in the dark while a great horned owl that used to be your neighbor is actively hunting nearby. In Seminole tradition, the hoot of a great horned owl at night is considered an omen of the stickini's presence. The sound is not nothing. It is a warning about something that looks like your neighbor at breakfast and is hunting you by midnight. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.